Alright, so this is where we left off last time. We have our bird object. It is able to fly. The flight kind of feels like we'd expect it to. You might want to play around a bit with the max velocity or the flap force, things like that, or the fly angle, but for the most part, we got things up and running pretty good. So let's start adding some pipes. So if I zoom back out here, you'll notice that the sprites that we have for pipes are different than the ones that we had before, the ones that we used in class. Let me find, there we go. So these ones are red. Ooh, okay. We probably want this to be at 8 pixels. Single, point no filter. Looks like it's about the right size. And we're going to do the same thing for the other one. We're going to do 8 pixels per unit, single, point no filter, none, apply. I'll pull in the top pipe. Alright, so we have these two pipes. I'm going to rename them to be bottom pipe and top pipe. Now, let's set their positions. So I'm going to have this be 0, and we'll do 14. And the bottom pipe I'm going to have it 0, and we'll do negative 13. That looks about good for the distance between the two pipes. Now the pipes need to be a child of a bigger game object that holds both of them. But before I do that, let's actually add the physics to these. So with both pipes, I'm going to control click to get them both, and I'm going to add to both of them box collider 2D and a rigid body 2D. And on that rigid body 2D, I want it to be static. And then we can check the box colliders here. They should automatically conform. Yep, they're good. Alright, now we want these to be a child of a new empty game object. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to create an empty object. I'm just going to call this pipes. And I'm going to put the two pipes as children of that object. I want the pipes object to be at, oops, I must have had something selected. So the pipes object, there we go, to be at 0, 0, 0. That kind of moves off my bottom pipe a bit. Oh, because I mess with it. Negative 14, 0. And 13, 0. There we go. Shouldn't have had them both selected when I went in there. Looks good. Alright. So now the pipe object itself needs to have another box collider. This one is going to be used as a trigger. You can see that it creates, if I zoom in here, it's a little box collider right here. I don't want it to touch the pipes, but I want it to be close enough that there's no way the bird could get through it without interfering. So 7's probably too much. We'll go 6.5. No, 6.75. That's good. And for X, let's scale this up. 3.25, and we'll put it at, no. Oops, I accidentally locked my computer. Professional teacher here, negative 0.5. Cool. Alright, make sure that you mark this as a trigger, otherwise the bird's not going to be able to move through it. Just to make sure that these pipes have physics, I'm going to hit play and make sure that the bird kind of hits both of them. Cool. Alright. Next thing I want to make is a new script for the pipe. So in my scripts folder, I'm going to right click, create, go to scripting, mono behavior script, and I'm going to name this one as pipes. And let's get this one opened. Alright, so the pipes need to have a speed. So we're going to create a serialized field, private float, and we'll just call this move speed. In the update function, we're going to transform.translate. So this is where we could use time.delta time. So transform.translate vector 3.left times move speed times time.delta time. Alright, we're going to save that. Let's go back into Unity here. That'll compile for a second. We're not using the physics system with this because there's no reason to. We don't want them to act in a physics way. Oh, I have an error. Let's fix it. So I think I have these backwards. This should be lowercase t transform, and this should be capital T translate. If you caught that, good on you. My computer's running so slow because I'm screen recording. There we go. So these should move to the left now. Now, hopefully you remember what the issue with this is from class. If not, we'll talk about it. Oh, I didn't give him a speed. Let's give him a speed. Oh, I also didn't give him the pipe script. Good lord, Mr. Jack. Let's give him a speed of 5. Alright. Okay, let's take a look at the X here. I'll pause. Those pipes still exist in the world. They're still here. They're at -24 right now, and they will keep existing for as long as I have them. So they need to know where to stop existing. So in our pipe script, we're going to create a kind of like a minimum X position. Serialized field, float, and min X position. And then in update, we're just going to check to see if they are at that min X position. So if transform.position.x is less than min X position, then we want to destroy this dot game object. You can add a second argument here as like how long you want it to wait before it destroys, but this is good for us. And then I'm pretty sure I don't need the start function. We'll come back to this later to create like a setup function when we have the game manager, but that's good for now. So let's save. Give this a minute to cook. This dot game object. Is it lowercase g game object? It must be lowercase g game object. This dot game object. Alright, there we go. So let's give it a min X position of -10. And there we go. Cool. For now, that's all the pipes themselves need to do. Oh, one more thing. We're going to turn these into a prefab. So we don't need a folder for it because we really only have one prefab in this project, but I'm going to create it anyway. I'll create a new folder. This is going to be called prefabs. And in this folder, I'll drag my pipes object in there. And then I want to delete the one that is currently in the scene. Cool. All right, that's it for part 2. Next, we're going to move on to the game manager. All right, where we left off, we had our pipe object. We made it a prefab. The pipes are able to move. We've got our bird moving. Let's get our game manager up and running. So our game manager is going to be an object that sits in the back of the scene. So we're going to create an empty game object. I'm going to call this game manager. I'm going to reset its position to be 0, 0, 0. And I'm going to make it blue. You don't need to do this part, but it gives it something you can actually click on in the scene. Now our game manager is going to do pretty much everything behind the scenes. So I'm going to go to my scripts folder, right click, create, under scripting, I'm going to choose mono behavior script, and I'm going to call this game manager. Yeah, I spelled that correctly. And then let's open this up in Visual Studio. So the game manager, first thing it's going to do is it's going to be creating pipe objects. And if it's going to create pipe objects, it needs to know what to create, where to create it, and how often to create it. So first, we're going to make a reference to what to create. So in our script here, we're going to create a serialized field. And this is going to be a private game object, and we're going to call this pipes. We need to know where to create it. Serialized field, private, vector 3, and we'll call this spawn position. We need to know how often to create it. Serialized field, private float, and we'll call this spawn time. And then I'm going to create another private float, which I'm going to call spawn time seconds. That one isn't the serialized field though. I don't want to set that one in the inspector. In the start function, I'm going to set, I probably want to fix the way I spelled spawn time up there. Spanu. Spawn time seconds. There we go. So in start, I want to set spawn time seconds equal to spawn time. Now in the update function, I'm going to be decreasing spawn time seconds. So spawn time seconds minus equals time, no, hey. Oh, good Lord. Visual Studio sure does think it knows what I want, and it does not. Time dot delta time. Remember, time dot delta time is the time between frames. And then if spawn time seconds is less than 0, then what we'll do is create a new pipe. We'll do that first by resetting spawn time seconds. I'm feeling lazy, so I'm just going to copy this line here and paste it down here. We're also going to create a new game object. So we're going to instantiate pipes, and we're going to instantiate it at the spawn position, and we're going to use quaternion.identity as our rotation for it. And that should create the new pipe. So going back into Unity here, assuming I don't have any errors. So the game manager script needs to be attached to the game manager, and then we need to set up those pipes objects. So I have my prefab folder, so it's easy to set up my spawn position. I'm going to put at 10 on the x-axis, and my spawn time I'm going to make 2. So So every 2 seconds, it's going to create a new one. Okay, so there we go. Now they're all being created at the same height, so we want to have some sort of offset, but take a look at the hierarchy. You'll see that we really only ever have 2 at any given time. They're getting destroyed as they go off the screen. So let's start. Let's change the height of the pipes when they're being created. Alright, so in Visual Studio, we're going to create a kind of a min Y position and a max Y position. We're going to do these both again as serialized fields. So private float min Y position. Private float max Y position. I feel like Visual Studio gets cocky every time it guesses correctly, but it is way too keen to think it knows what I want. So in our update here, I'm going to create an integer value, or no, a float value. And we'll call this temp y. No, we'll call this y offset. And this is going to be equal to random.range between min y position and max y position. And then for our spawn position, dot y, we're going to set that equal to the y offset. Now again, we're going to need to make sure that we set these in the inspector. So we'll have 2 new fields to manipulate when this comes up. Alright, so -5 and +5. And that should probably use some playing with to make sure it's what we want it to be, but for now it'll be okay. So, not a huge variety in our... Oh, there we go. That one's pretty far down. So we could have it be... They could be higher. I don't think I want them any lower than that, though. But they could be higher. So, yeah, that can be messed around with. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but my cats are not liking each other right now. Alright. So we got that. What next? I guess that's it for pipes. Let's make our max Y position a little higher, and then it should be good, and then this should probably be like -4.5. Some of those were kind of in the ground. And then, yeah, cool. Let's come back to the next one then.